What is up, you guys? It is Jake State Farm here with Atomic Theory, bringing you yet another Atomic Chess video. And for today's video, we are going to be recapping the 2026 Chess.com Atomic Chess Championship. It is Saturday night for me right now. This took place yesterday, Friday, around noon for me. And super exciting event with a whole bunch of strong players. It was won by Andre Volgin, aka Wolfram, or Gravosin, I believe his name was, on Chess. Yeah, Gravosin, or chess.com rather, sorry. Um, but yeah, it was a incredible tournament. I'm going to be making a couple videos on this. So this first one, I'm not going to be actually diving into any of the games, although I will do that. I'll go through how Gravosin or Wolfram, I was going to call him Wolfram, but I'll go through how Wolfram was able to win the tournament, the prep that he used for it, and yeah, I'll be going over some of his games. I also went through, I just looked at every single game from the tournament, not in depth on all of them, but I looked through every single game in the tournament. And so I may be going through a couple other games as well here and there. So first things first, I've got a bunch of stats for the tournament as well that we're going to go through in a second here, so stay tuned for that. But just to give you the layout of the tournament, so as it ended up going very similar to how I predicted it to be. I predicted that one of these four players would win, either Opa Binia or Johan Fon, either Maxwell Silverhammer here, Onu Bence, or Wolfram. I thought one of them four would win. I thought I thought these three matches here were complete locks in the first round, and then this one was a toss-up. Well, Vanto here ended up forfeiting in round one. There's a whole story behind that. I guess he didn't want to set up his camera. I'm not really sure what happened there. There's some speculation with that for sure. I'll get into that more later on as we go over Vanto's performance. But yeah, so those four players ended up not only advancing, but as you can see down here, they were actually the players that ended up finishing 1, 2, 3, and 4. And actually, Opa Binia, Johan Fon here, could have done a lot better. He had like close games in both of these matches here that he lost, especially this one here. There was a game he really should have won and he lost. And even in this one as well, it seemed there was a game that he was winning and ended up losing. It was a game in which Maxwell had played e5, like knight f3, e5, and that would be an interesting game to go over. I want to say that was game 5 in their match. So it was the tiebreaker game. I think we'll probably go over that in another video, but it was a really interesting game, super close game. Opa Binia had his queen stuck on the side of the board, and Max ended up able to checkmate him with like maybe 2 seconds left on his clock or something like that. But really, looking at the position, I didn't go over it with an engine, but it seemed to me that Opa was probably better most of the game, and honestly ahead on the clock most of the game as well. So it seemed like he just eventually cracked there. And then same thing here. Whatever, I can't remember the exact situation, but I thought Opa was one. I thought the strongest players in the tournament were Opa and Wolfram, who ended up winning the whole thing. But Maxwell ended up getting a free pass here because Vanto ended up forfeiting the first round, so he's able to watch Opa's match and then barely beat him here. And I will give props to Max where it's due. He was able to beat who I picked to win the tournament and who did win the tournament, and who I thought played the strongest by far was Wolfram. He was able to beat him in a match here, and then once again get 2 games off of him here. And he did it all while being the lower seed. He played all 4 of these matches being the lower seed, so I do have to give him his flowers there. He definitely outperformed what I thought he would do. Yep, and then Onu Bence ended up, one interesting thing that happened there is that when Max won this match here, he gets a long break because he has to wait for both of these matches to end. And he ended up finding Onu Bence's alt account because he saw it on the Zoom. Because when you're playing in this tournament, you're all on a Zoom chat together. And so he found Onu Bence's alt account that he had been playing on Lichess since December of 2025, and he started to prep up on Onu Bence, which ended up not mattering because Wolfram was the one that ended up beating Onu Bence there. But we all came into this tournament thinking Onubints is pretty washed. I thought even with Onubints being washed, I labeled him as a wild card. I said he could either win the whole thing or he could lose it. Well, we saw that Onubints wasn't washed. However, one thing, and we'll get to this in a second, one thing that Onubints really did struggle with was time pressure. He almost every game he was either flagging or getting really close to flagging. And there was lots of games where he really should have won and he flagged instead. So anyway, Onubints ended up being probably a lot stronger than we all expected and ended up getting third place. Then Wolfram was able to win the whole thing. He was really strong throughout. And then the rest of the guys, weren't able to do too well. I wasn't impressed with Reechester. Julian down here, he was able to get 3-2 against Opabenia. The problem is that he just can't do anything as black. And I said this in my last video as well. I said that Reechester has gotten really good at white. He's got this line at Knight H3 that he plays, and it feels almost unstoppable. He knows every line super, super, super deep. But yeah, sadly, just he's not against a field this strong. He's just not able to get too many wins with the black side. So. And then the rest of them, we're not able to make it too far. I guess there's a little bit of drama here in this match with BG, but we'll go over that in a second here. So flipping over to the stats here, I hope you guys can see this okay. I went through every single game in the tournament, and so there was 110 total games played. There were 54 decisive games and 1 draw. So I'm just going to go player by player here and kind of talk about each player, what they played, and then we'll go over some stats for the whole tournament at the end. So starting with Opabenia here, the 1 seed, keep in mind every single match he played, if it went to sudden death, he got the extra white in the end, so that was a huge advantage for him. But he ended up only getting 9 wins to 8 losses, and he really was not able to do too much from the black side. As you can see, 1 black win as opposed to 6 black losses. And actually that 1 black win came against BG in round 1. And as I said going into the tournament, I didn't say going into the tournament. I had actually been invited to Opa's study that he did specifically for BG. And I was super impressed with his prep. I was like, yeah, for sure this is going to work. BG actually ended up playing a pretty good line against it, I think. But Opa took him by surprise, got him in time pressure, and was able to take that game. So he was 0-6 after that. And yeah, granted it was against strong players, right? He's going against Maxwell here, going against Reechester here, who we know is strong from the white side, and then going against Onubints here. So he did play against strong players, but you would think out of those 3 matches he'd be able to get at least 1 win from the black side. And so that's really what did him in this tournament. If he was able to get really any wins as black, then I think he would have done much better. And as white, he was pretty solid. He was playing a lot of 2 knights, and he was playing this nice line in the 2 knights C6 variation. As you can see, he was responsible for a decent number of these white wins here. I can't quite remember what else he played. I know since he ran into Max was able to get him with a crucial E5 win, which really hurt him in this match here. It was, like I just said, it was in their 5th game there, and Max was able to win with 1 E5 against his Knight F3, and a pretty crazy game there. So overall, I felt Opa played really well. I will also say in this match against Onubints, in their 4th game, Opabenia should have won that game. He was winning from the black side, and had he won that game, then they would have gone into a tiebreaker, and Opa would have had the white pieces, and you very well could have seen Opa moving on to face Wolfram here. So overall, I felt it was a bit disappointing for Opa, but 4th place is still a very respectable score. He dominated BG in round 1, and then every match he played after that was very close. And he messaged me after the tournament saying that it was pretty cool to get to play against Onubints in a match. And so potentially some blinded by the lights, if you will, playing against one of the greats, but can't say that I wouldn't do the same in his shoes there. So good performance for Opa. Still was able to finish in the top half. Then moving over to Onubens, he actually played a lot of different openings. So he was one of the only players that actually played Knight H3 in this tournament. He also played a lot of Knight F3, D4. I think he had at least 2 games in this. And then he may have had a couple 2 Knights games as well. I can't remember, but he really mixed up his openings quite a bit. The story for Onubens above everything else, I mean, you can see he was pretty diversified in his black wins and white wins and black losses and white losses. He was very diversified. But the story of the tournament for Onubens was, as you can see, I kept track as I was going through the games. He played 19 games, and 14 of them he finished under 6 seconds. Like, I mean, it's just incredible. And he actually lost a few games before he even got to 6 seconds. A lot of the games he was winning, he was at like 1 or 2 seconds. I think I did under 6 seconds because there was one where it was like 5 point something. But other than that, like almost all of them were like 1, 2, or 3 seconds. Like just so many of his games was running solo on time. He flagged multiple times. He gave BG a black win because he had a queen against BG. When BG did his Knight F3, E3 spam, he had just promoted to a queen, had probably a mate in 2, and then flagged against BG. So BG, or sorry, not a black win, a white win. He gave BG one of his only 2 white wins out of 5 games as white. So that definitely boosted BG's numbers a little bit, but he was even still, he was able to take down BG. I know BG was complaining after the tournament, saying the format's stupid, saying that, you know, he should have beat Onubens. And yeah, sure, it was a really close match, but you also have to keep in mind, Onubens did lose a game where he literally probably had mate in 2 and he just flagged. So whatever happened, Onubens seemed to be, like I said, he had that ult, so you would have thought that he was more informed than we all guessed. But just, I don't know what it was, if the pressure got to him or what, but he really just got under time pressure. And that's what really messed him up. But I will say, percentage-wise, I haven't done the numbers on this, but it seems like he scored really well as black. He won 3 out of his 8 black games, which is good for probably 37.5%. I think it is something like that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But he scored pretty well as black, whereas you can see the average for the tournament was only 27%. So he did do well as black, and I'll give him credit there. He was one of the strongest players there. His prep was really weak. That was one of the problems why he kept getting into time trouble. He would spend so much time in the opening. And so, you know, maybe if he had been a bit better booked up, he could have gone further. But overall, I think he showcased just how strong of a player he is, even with probably hardly prepping at all, switching up his opening multiple times. He still had a relatively strong showing and was able to finish 3rd place overall. Okay, so moving over to Gravozen here, aka Wolfram, our 2026 champion. This dude absolutely dominated the competition. In fact, his numbers probably should be even better than they are. I can think of at least one game that he lost. I believe it was against Max, where he was winning and he just ended up flagging. But a lot of his losses ended up being really close. He had a 68 win percentage, and this number actually isn't quite right because, as you can see, my calculation was just this divided by this. So I really didn't even take into account the draw. So if you take that into account, it's probably more like 70%, to be honest. This draw was basically counting as a loss for the purposes of win percentage. So I'm not a mathematician. I didn't feel like figuring all that out. But either way, you know, the next highest one was 52%. I mean, these two guys both had 52%. And keep in mind, this is a guy who played against Rechester in round 1, who I said is almost unbeatable as white. Well, Gravozen, aka Wolfram, was able to get a draw against him with the black pieces, which set the tone for that match. You know, otherwise, if Rechester won all of his white games, then all he has to do is win or draw one of the 3 white games from Wolfram, and he'll win the match. So he's able to draw Rechester's very first white game of the tournament. Then he moves on to beat Onubens. So he's playing against Onubens. Then he plays against Maxwell. Then he plays against Onubens again, and then Maxwell 2 more times. So really, he played 6 matches, and none of them were slouches, right? Like none of them. He didn't get a free win against Vanto. He didn't get matched up against BG. He didn't get matched up against Leisha. He probably got matched up against the hardest round one opponent that was not one of the other top guys. Leisha is strong. He seems to really struggle in this format. So maybe I'm just between BG and Vanto. He didn't get matched. He didn't get a free match against one of them, right? It was strong. It was strong opponent after strong opponent after strong opponent. And so, overall, this 68% win percentage is not a fluke. Also, keep in mind, this dude had a winning record as Black. He had 5 wins as Black and only 4 losses. His openings, he just spammed 2 nights, and he was really well booked up. He was the best booked player of the tournament, which I was honestly surprised. I know he's been playing a lot, but you've got, Maxwell, who's no lifing it. You've got Opa, who in my opinion is known for his incredible prep. And then you have Wolfram come in here and play a 2 nights line that I don't think got beaten. I know he lost once to Maxwell when Maxwell played E5, and I don't know if he lost another game there. I think I'm trying to remember exactly how this went now, because I know Maxwell won an E5 game here and he won an E5 game here. So I'm thinking maybe Wolfram did lose 1 game when he played 2 nights, but I honestly, I don't remember. It may not have even been. I'll have to go back and look. But either way, out of 12 white games, he only loses 2, and at least one of them wasn't even in 2 nights. So he had over a 90% win percentage in this 2 nights line, and I mean, props to him. He played it really well. I remember. I think it was against Onubens actually, down here. Oh, it would have been right here. Yeah, I think he lost one of his games here, from the white side, if I remember correctly. Onubens was able to find a line in 2 nights to beat him with knight h6. Ended up being a pretty crazy game. But yeah, Wolfram just dominated as white, and then as Black, he had a lot of incredible games. And this number, like I said, especially as Black, should have been even better, because I can think of at least one Black game where he was winning, ended up flagging. So he had, and it wasn't even like he was playing boring stuff in the 2 nights. He actually had a different line where, I believe it's on move 6, he was playing e5 from the white side. So yeah, he was very well diversified. And then against c6, I want to say he was playing pawn to d4. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what he was playing there, but either way, he just played incredibly, was well booked up. He was ahead on the clock all the time. He had this incredible line against Max's e5. In these last 2 matches here, I'm pretty sure Max played e5 every game from the Black side, and Wolfram didn't lose a game. Wolfram did not lose a white game in these last 2 matches, and so he was very well booked up for all of Max's traps, who is notorious for playing this e5 stuff. So all in all, I was super impressed. He was my pick to win the tournament, so I'm glad that he ended up winning, but I did not expect this level of dominance. Just an insane 68% win percentage. His Black win percentage was over 50%, so basically double the tournament average of 27%. So incredible stuff from Wolfram, and congratulations to the 2026 champion. And before I get to, well, I guess after Max, before I get to this bottom half here, congratulations to all 8 of these players for qualifying. I believe fair and square, hopefully. There's some question marks here. But congratulations to all these players qualifying once again. This was a very strong field here. And, even these guys here having a 50% win percentage is very respectable in a field such, as strong as this here. Truly, all 8 of these players are very strong atomic players. And I think that's what shocks me so much. To have a win percentage above 50% from the Black side in a field this strong is incredible stuff from Wolfram, and shows that he didn't just win because he was the higher seed. Yes, you can look at this grand final reset and say he may have won this match. He may have won the tournament because he was the higher seed. And maybe that's the case, but you can't hate on the fact that he still won more Black games than he lost. And for anyone complaining about having a low seed and not being able to win, if you're able to win over 50% of your black games, then I think you're going to be okay either way, especially, once again, given the competition. Anyway, I was just blown away by Wolfram this tournament. So much fun to watch. It wasn't even just the openings. He played really strongly throughout. I was kind of hoping he would win towards the end because he had a lot of games that I think will go well in a video, honestly. And I was wanting to do a recap on his performance in the tournament. Okay, moving right along to the 4 seed Maxwell here. Don't let this 44% fool you because, again, these 3 games right here aren't counted. This was a forfeit, so I didn't count these in the numbers that I crunched. So all that Maxwell actually played was 1 match against Opa and then 3 matches against the champion Wolfram. So actually 44% against that field is pretty respectable. And let's not forget that he was the lower seed in all of those matches as well. So he only had, 7 white games as opposed to 11 black games. So actually to have 8 wins with only 7 white games is pretty respectable. That means he actually won more black games than white games he lost. So overall, especially considering the competition, Maxwell played phenomenally. He had at least 2... Yeah, I guess it was because he was the only one that played this. So he had 2 wins with this E5 line in these matches here. And so he was able to win both of them despite being the lower seed. He won the 2 crucial game 5s with his E5. In fact, I want to say in this match here, if I'm remembering correctly, he played the first 2 games with F6, lost both of those, and then saved his final E5 punch for the 5th and final game, was able to take down Wolfram. And then once Wolfram was able to prep it a little bit, he ended up winning these matches here. But overall, a really solid performance from Maxwell. He played 3 matches against the strongest player of the day and 1 match against one of the strongest players of the day, and still ended with a 44% win rate despite having black 11 times as opposed to white 7 times. And I have to respect Max as well. He definitely didn't spam 1 opening as white. He mixed it up quite a bit. And he also was really the only one to try something crazy from the black side. He played this opening 8 times, 8 out of his 11 black games. He played E5 on move 1. And so I do just have to respect that, trying something different. He only had a 25% win rate with it, but those 25%, those 2 wins came at very clutch times. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what he played as white. I know he played Knight H3 one game, and I want to say he maybe followed it up with E4. I think he lost that game, actually, but he definitely did switch it up. He did play some 2 knights for sure, as everyone in this tournament did, but he switched up his openings on both sides, and I do have to really respect that, and he still had really good results. And so overall, I felt like he was probably the second best prepped player of the tournament. And, if he was a higher seed, if he did get more whites, you would be potentially looking at Maxwell as your champion of the tournament. Okay, moving along to Vanto. The story with Vanto's pretty weird. He joined and apparently didn't want to set up his camera, and which is strange. Vanto in the qualifiers was unbeatable. He was simply unbeatable. I won 1 game against him. I don't think I won any more games against him in the 4 qualifiers that we played with each other. I would have to go and fact check that to make sure. He was unbeatable in the qualifiers. The 5th qualifier that he won, he had an incredible run. He was completely unbeatable in the 5th qualifier. And so I looked at his 4 games against BG, and he played terribly. I mean, it was awful. Even the game that he won, he played really poorly. He missed some really simple wins. And of course, you can always say nerves. Sure, there may have been nerves. But just even without computer analysis, I'm looking at those games, and he just played terribly. I mean, he really should not have won a single game against BG. That first game that he won, he just had such a dominating position. It didn't really matter what he did, but he missed so many obvious wins. I'm not going to throw any accusations at him, but even BG after the tournament was wondering what was going on, why he was so weak. So yeah, I don't know. I clearly misplaced him. I put him in the middle of the pack. He was clearly the weakest player on the day. But the Vanto that I played in the qualifiers was not the weakest player here. So we'll just chalk it up to nerves. But yeah, the Vanto that I saw during the qualifiers and the Vanto that I saw during the finals here were two completely different players. And yeah, I'm honestly shocked he even won one game there. So we'll see what happens with that situation. Moving right along to Rechester, I'm very impressed with Ree. The story for him was just that he was not able to win as black. He ended up getting one black win against, I think it must have been Leisha, I think. Yeah, I guess it would have been Leisha. Which, if you haven't had a chance, I would recommend going and looking at that match between Rechester and Leisha. Those games were so quick. Like the first two games, I think were like both under like 12 moves or something. Like it was such a quick match. I think 3 out of the 4 games were really quick. They did have one long game. But yeah, that was a interesting match. Like I was looking at those games and to be honest, like from the black side, they were just not very high quality. They were not very like the games that white won quickly. It was just not very close. So, I mean, yeah, I'll talk about Leisha in a second here, but for Ree, I am impressed with him. He was able to do the best with what he had, being a lower seed. He had to play against the champion in round 1, and then after he took down Leisha, who is no slouch in his own regard, had to go against Opabenia, who is one of the strongest players in the tournament, and ended up losing 3-2. Did not drop a game as white, and I'm confident that if Rechester was the higher seed, there's a solid chance that he would have actually won this match, just because Rechester is just so strong as white, especially right now. He's got his stuff down, and so yeah, he is. He didn't lose a single white game. He won 4 and ended up drawing 1 against Wolfram. But the story for him is that he's just not strong enough against this caliber of player to consistently win from the black side. As white, he mainly played this knight h3, d4 stuff. So he had, I think all 3 of these were retester. And then he also had 2 games of knight f3, e4, where he played them both against Opabenia. So it must have been specific prep against Opa, because he only brought that out against Opa, but he was able to win both games when he played knight f3, e4. So I was actually pretty impressed that he switched it up. I made a comment in my last video saying he plays the same thing 90% of the time, but that is evidently not true, because in his 4 games as white, he played 2 knight h3, d4s and 2 knight f3, e4s. So I guess actually only 2 of these would have been him. But yeah, so I have to take back my comment. Actually, he only plays the same thing 50% of the time, apparently. And overall, I'm impressed with him. From the white side, he's very strong. If he had been the 1 seed, he would have been a tough player to take down. I definitely don't think he would have won the tournament, but I could have seen him making a deeper run. The unfortunate part for him is that he is one of those guys that he has this line that he's very good with as the white side, but as the black side, he is not as strong. Okay, and then moving on to Leisha. Unfortunately for Leisha, it's another very disappointing year. Obviously, he was able to qualify, so not as disappointing for him as some. But last year it was the same thing. It was 2 up, 2 down for him. He lost both of his first round matchups last year. And okay, I guess you'll get a pass against Onubens in round 1 here. But in the losers round 1, he really played really poorly against Rechester. It's too bad to see because Ree is actually a strong player. It was funny, I was going over their first game, and it was this really weird line in knight h3, d4, where Leisha played this idea of like bishop e6, bishop c4 from the black side. I was like, what in the world? I've never seen this before. Like 3 moves later, he was checkmated. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy prep. It went from that to being like, what are you doing, Leisha? Like, what kind of moves are this? There's another game where it seemed like, unless I'm getting it confused with another one, I think he just missed a mating idea for Rechester as well. So Leisha is a very strong player. I certainly have no cheating allegations or anything like that towards him. I think he's a very strong player, and unfortunately, I think he does potentially crack under the pressure a little bit. This year's not as And it's not as sad as last year for him because last year was a really weak field. I can't remember exactly who he lost to, but at least one of them was a non-Lee chess player, just a chess.com guy that he really probably should have beat. And so, 2 years in a row now he's been able to qualify, which is impressive. But unfortunately, he's just not able to make it happen in the final 8. Only a 14% win percentage on the tournament. Ended up being a really disappointing tournament for him. And I hope to see him back next year. He's certainly a very strong player, but he's just not able to get it done against this caliber of player at this time. Okay, and then lastly, we've got BG here. BG is a really interesting one. He lost against Opa very quickly. Opa had some really nice prep against him. Then he was able to take down Vanto, who was just terrible on the day. And then lost 3-2 against Onibens. Really complained a lot to me about how the tournament was not set up well, and how he should have beaten Onibens. I mean, he said multiple times he should have beaten Onibens. I looked into the games and I just didn't feel the same way, to be honest. Onibens kept getting under time pressure. This match should not have gone this far. Onibens should have won another game as black, actually. I believe this could have been potentially a 3-0 or at least a 3-1. But Onibens, like I said, flagged with a queen on the board and had probably mate in 2, mate in 3, and just flagged. And so I really don't think that match was as close as he thought it was. And keep in mind, even with winning that game as white, a game that he really should have lost, he only had a 60% win percentage as white. And his main complaint was that, the way the tournament is set up, it was, unfortunate for him because he wasn't able to play in some of the earlier qualifiers. And so winning the 8th qualifier, he has a huge disadvantage. And, I mean, sure, you look at these numbers here, 72% win percentage for white, 27 for black. Sure, white has a huge edge. But you come in here, you play knight f3, e3 every single game. The opening that everyone learns at the beginning, the opening that the one player who took the time to prep against you beat you in it, the one game that you guys had, he beat you in it. Then you went on to win against the weakest player in the tournament by far, and then your match against Onibens really should not have been as close as it was. Onibens should have taken you down earlier. And by the way, both of these, or at least one of these black wins here, sorry, I'm not sure about both of them, at least one of these black wins was against Vanto here, who was high on drugs or something. I don't know what Vanto was on yesterday. So BG, if you're watching this, I love you, man, but it wasn't all the format's fault. You came in and you played one opening that a good player like Opa is going to prep against. You played one opening, the most basic opening, and which I believe he lost twice in it, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I guess he had 2 white losses, so of course he lost in it. You played one opening. You haven't taken the time to actually learn new openings, which maybe is a testament to me and some other players who know Life Atomic. If you're able to qualify over us with only knowing one opening, maybe it's more of a testament to how bad of a player I am. But either way, I wouldn't complain about the format too much. If you think about last year, there was plenty of upsets. The number 1 seed lost both of his matches right off the bat. I was the 3 seed, I believe it was. Took down Fast Tsunami in the finals, even though he was the player with the white pieces and the sudden death. So I don't think it's just all about, maybe for you it is, but I don't think it's just all about the format. I think you see a guy like Wolfram here who wins the tournament. He ends up having actually a higher win rate than loss rate with the black pieces. So it's certainly doable. And there are certain players like Reechester and like maybe BG that really need to have a higher seed. But I think that's what separates these players in this tournament, is that the players that were really able to do very well were players that were able to win as black. Even Maxwell here with the 3 black wins, he had really clutch wins as black to close out matches, and he was willing to try new openings, try different stuff as both sides. And I think just to be honest, I think you're limiting yourself if you're sticking to one opening from white and one opening from black. I think you could have done a lot better if you had tried to, specifically prep other things for this tournament. prep things that you know your opponents wouldn't be able to prep against you, but instead you just played the one opening that you know from white and the defenses that you know from black. And, again, this was a super strong field. You did well against Onibens overall, but my grand point here is that I don't think it was just the fact that you were the 8 seed. I think there are other things that stopped you from winning this tournament. And, if nothing else, just the field was really strong. Looking at the 4 players that finished ahead of you, they're all super duper strong in their own right. So I wouldn't be upset with the result, but I also wouldn't just fully blame it on the format either. But yeah, that is my recap of the players themselves. And then going into just kind of what openings were played. Of course, the win percentages tell a story, not the full story. There's plenty of games that black won that white should have won, or white won that black should have won. You know how it goes. So it's not necessarily telling the full story here, but it does tell a story. We can see there was only one opening that had a 100% win rate for white. It was in knight h3 e6. I want to say this was a game that Opa played e6 in, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember, but I believe Opa played this e6 and lost. And then there was one opening that actually had a 100% win rate for the black side. It was knight f3, f6, knight d4. And one of these, I believe Max was white, and he opted to go for the move pawn to e3 after knight h6. And then there was another one that I believe h3 was played. It was against Wolfram. I think it was Onibens and Wolfram that played it, if I'm not mistaken. Onibens played pawn to h3. Wolfram responded with his normal a6, and then after Onibens played knight c3 in that position, Wolfram played c6. It ends up being a pretty even position. It's actually a position that I prefer the white side quite a bit. It's actually a good position for this kind of tournament, because even if you prep it, you're just going to you're not really going to get a good position as black. You'll just be slightly worse. In fact, I actually prepped that against Wolfram in the Atomic Chess League Season 1, that exact line with pawn h3, because I knew he'd play a6. I was actually able to get a win in that. I lost the match overall. Wolfram's just the GOAT. But I do think it's a good line to play, but unfortunately, small sample size here. Black ended up winning all of those, so white wasn't able to get a win in any of those. 2 knights were by far the most popular opening. You can see these were both 2 knights, so that's 19 games featured 2 knights, and rightfully so. 2 knights netted, roughly an 80% win percentage, maybe slightly lower than that. So 2 knights, obviously it's what Wolfram spams, so it kind of skews the results slightly. But overall, that was a very strong line for white. And then we saw a couple knight f3, and then e4 or d4, and that was cool to see. I know. Oh, I want to say actually, I do think Wolfram actually played this, and that's maybe it was just a transposition. Actually, I'm remembering one game that he played where they got a position that comes out on knight f3 d4, but it may have just been a transposition after c6. I just had a conversation with Quaza about this line. I don't think it's that strong for white. I think black has a lot of ideas, but I guess it is another one of those lines where if you play it as white and you know what you're doing, you can be pretty confident that you won't be worse. So maybe it makes sense in a tournament like this to play it a little bit. We obviously saw some knight f3 e3 spam, although outside of the 5 games from BG where he played it, it was actually only played twice. I believe Opa played it once, and I don't remember who else played it, maybe Max. So overall, I actually didn't see knight f3 e3 spam all too much. And then, there's a lot of 8 games where e5 was played. Those were just all Max games. And then looking over at knight h3, it was played in 20% of games. And we saw h6 as the main response. And yeah, these are kind of the 3 main moves you'll see: knight c3, d4, e4. Obviously, d4 being kind of the move of choice for the top players right now. So it was interesting to see knight c3. This was a line that Onibens was playing quite a bit. He was playing this knight c3 line. As you can see, he was having quite a bit of success with it there. And overall, with the openings, I felt that, I wasn't too surprised to see 2 knights be the most common line, the most common opening of choice by far. It was interesting to see it have such a high win percentage, simply due to the fact that, and maybe I'm just late to the train here, but it seems like, as I'm digging into it, it seems like there's a ton of resources for black here. In fact, now that I'm remembering the game, I think this third black win that, or no, was it? I can't remember who won the game, but I know Max had a crazy game against Wolfram in 2 knights, knight h6, where he did his pet line of bishop d6 instead of f5 on move 5. And that was the one line that Wolfram maybe wasn't so well prepped for, and I'll go over that in the video where we go over all of Wolfram's games. But yeah, it seems like that's just one example. It seems like there's lots of resources for black. 2 knights is an opening that I used to hate to see, and now it's one of my favorite openings to see. I'd rather see it than knight f3, e3. Honestly, it's just maybe even my favorite opening to see at the top level, because openings like knight f3, knight d4 are tough to win from the black side, and then knight h3 is just kind of depends on the line that they play. I guess my favorite opening to see is probably knight f3, d4 right now if I'm playing the black side. But 2 knights, it's kind of a playground for me right now. I've got a line against the e takes f5 on move 6, where I've got like roughly an 80% win rate from the black side against strong players. So it's for me, it's both knight h6 and c6 have a lot of appeal from the black side, and so I was kind of surprised to see the win rate so high. But again, it was slightly skewed because Wolfram was playing it and he was just so on top of his game. So that would be the only surprise there. Other than that, the other surprise, I guess, is that there was no other move played other than knight f3 or knight h3 for 110 games. Or sorry, not 110, 55. I can't count. That's because each game counts as 2 here. Yeah, out of 55 games, only 2 first moves played, which is really interesting to me. As you can see, knight f3 was played 80% of the time. Knight h3 20% of the time. So no e3, no knight c3, no e4, no d4. Lots of other moves that you've seen at the top level just did not get played today. Which was cool. I mean, it was cool to see that, every player seemed to come prepared with their own lines. And the win rate for each opening, if you started with knight f3, it was roughly 70% that you would win. Whereas if you started with knight h3, 72% that you would win. But again, these are probably skewed just because of the small sample size. Because if we look at this, Onybens was playing this line with knight c3, and obviously Onybens was one of the stronger players in the tournament. And then Rechester was playing this line with the d4. And like I said, his white is, virtually unbeatable. So these win rates were probably pretty similar. It probably didn't matter if you played knight h3 or knight f3. You probably had a pretty similar chance of winning the game. But yeah, other than that, I think that does it for the video. You're welcome to check this spreadsheet out on the Atomic Theory spreadsheet. It's in the Discord server. I don't actually know where to find it, but if you're in the Discord server, you can just ask me for it, and I can send you the link to it. But yeah, I just crunched these numbers real quick. The math, especially on the draws, is not going to be 100% correct, but I thought this would be fun just to look at the overall numbers of the tournament, see what openings the top players are playing, see how they're doing, see how they stack up against each other. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about this format of video. It's obviously a little bit different than what I normally do. Holy moly, we're at 43 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I hope you guys appreciated the recap. I am going to dig into some games. I'm definitely going to go over some of Wolfram's games because he was the champion, so stay tuned for that. There's also potential for an interview either with him or with one of the other players that played in the event. And then lastly, I may also put out a video of just some games from the tournament that I thought were interesting, so stay tuned for all that content. I'm not sure when it'll come out, surely in the next week or so. The Wolfram video is the only one that's confirmed, and then the rest of it just kind of depends on how much time I have. If I'm able to get it done, I'd love to, but we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate all the support, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace out.